How's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode 48 of the VR Roundtable. I'm hosting this week. I'm Chris, and I'm joined by Gary.
Hello.
And I'm joined by Steve.
Hey.
And Anthony.
What is up, everybody?
So we have some main news stories to talk about this week, some Oculus related and then some not. We're going to try to have a good mix of both. But we'll start out with Oculus. The first main news story is that Oculus is extending the summer sale by a few weeks. So the quote is, due to high demand, the resulting switch to the all new Rift Plus Touch package, we're extending the sale by a few weeks to make sure everyone can take advantage of the promotion, basically. So, yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's good news. I think as a person, I have to be kind of against vague terms that say for a few weeks. I hate arbitrariness. I hate things that aren't inexact. I consider myself a man of science, so to speak. So I like math and things that are defined, and this is definitely not defined. But on the other side, the indisputable takeaway is that the sale's longer and it gives more opportunity for people to pick up the hardware at a reduced price. So inevitably, I don't think you can take anything away other than it's a good thing. I would almost rather they just make this the new price, because I feel like, okay, they're going to extend this out a few more weeks. And then let's say that goes to, I don't know, mid-September. I'm not sure when the original sale was going to end off the top of my head, but it's going to reduce in price. And then I have to imagine that they're going to come back up in price again for the holidays. I can't talk today. Sorry. They're going to get more expensive when the sale goes away, but then it's going to come back down for the holidays. So why be wishy-washy? Why not just make this your new price and really put pressure on your competition?
Yeah, I wonder if they will just keep this as the new price, to be honest, because we've heard these reports that at the end of this 6-week sale that they originally had planned, it was going to go back up to $4.99. But yeah, I wonder if, because they've already started sending out this new bundle, and I think the new bundle was supposed to be the start of this, but they sold out of the original separate Oculus headset and touch controllers. So they just started shipping this new bundle to anybody who paid this price during this 6-week period. Now they've extended that. Maybe they're just thinking, we'll keep this as the new price. I hope they do. And yeah, it's still good news, and more people will be able to get on board with this. It's I think it's great. It's I think the price that they've got it at now is the magic price. I wonder if they were to go up to $499, £500, $500. I wonder if that's sort of the cutoff. The difference between $400 and $500 might be a little bit too much for some people.
Yeah.
Also, the idea, I was just going to say that the idea of like dropping your price and then raising it back up again is kind of ludicrous to me. But I've seen companies do this. Like Microsoft did it one time with their Xbox. At one point, they had a special deal, I think, on it was the Xbox One. Like they brought it down to a certain price, but they were saying, this is a temporary sale. But it's like once you lower your price to this new level, everybody out there gets it in their head that, okay, this is what this thing costs. And then you bring it back up again. It's not like it's a stock market, It's like once you lower the price, you pretty much, like, raising prices is kind of crazy. But I've seen companies do this. But again, like Steve's saying, you think it's just going to be this Christmas. They're going to lower it again. So what's the point? Is there going to be maybe like 1 month where they're selling it for $4.99?
Yeah, that's kind of, I was fumbling getting those words out because my computer was making sounds at me. Apologies if you guys heard that. But yeah, that's exactly, you said it better than I said. It seems a little counter to me, and it may be because I've always been a console gamer that I see a price drop, and those price drops are usually at a keynote or something. They'll say, and starting today, get PlayStation 4 for this, whatever the reduced price is. And you never see it go back up. Now, I think there have been occasionally a very specific sale that would be on things that were known as old SKUs or something like that. But Oculus again, I don't want to make too much noise about it. I guess it's good. The price sells longer. It's ultimately a good thing. Just a minor quibble is that what kind of potential confusion are they putting out there?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I mean, it'll always permanently affect the eBay market of Rifts. Like, no one's going to buy a Rift for like 500 new if they knew that, you know, it was at 400 at one point. And I just wanted to end the story by one more quote, which said, "We'll notify the community before the sale ends," which is kind of vague as well.
Well, that's nice.
But yeah, at least they'll notify us, right? It's not just going to disappear one day. So that's good. All right. So the next story is on Oculus's new, what is it? New stereo shading reprojection, which will save up to 20% of GPU usage. And it sounds to me like this is kind of to aid in reprojecting like shadows and transparent things. I'm not sure if that's completely correct, but it's just another layer of GPU savings on top of the space warp tech. Yeah.
I think what it's doing is it's basically allowing you to render the second eye with minimal amount of rendering, GPU focused rendering. So it's taking one eye's rendering and then just sort of almost transposing that into the other eye and only altering things that are directly affected by this slightly different perspective. I mean, it seems to work well. What they're saying is with this is that it's works well for very specific scenes. It won't work well for everything, but it can sort of reduce GPU load by 20%, I believe, is the figure they were quoting. So it seems like it's worth doing for them. And Oculus really are focused on getting these specs down for the PC specs down for VR. It seems to me they seem to be focusing a lot of energy into this. They brought out asynchronous time warp when the Oculus was first released, then later added this asynchronous space warp, and that reduced the minimum GPU requirement for Oculus. So, and this presumably will help again. I don't think it will help as significantly as those first two pieces of technology, but it's still a good thing that they're doing this. And I really hope that we'll see some more innovation from Steam VR side to match this kind of stuff as well, because we've got this asynchronous reprojection on the Vive now, which is great. I think that's added a lot to it, and we've been told they're working behind the scenes to have some kind of equivalent to asynchronous space warp as well for Steam VR, which is again another great thing if they can get this out. But I hope to see more innovations, like software innovations like this, in the coming months.
Yep, I think it's you may have said it, Gary, and I might have missed it, but they're quantifying it as up to 20% on certain scenes specifically. So it wouldn't be a 20% across the board improvement potential, but like you say, any potential is good. And I think ultimately there's a lot of noise made about, you know, well, the Oculus store doesn't support the Vive, and yet Steam VR does support the Rift and walled gardens and all that. And I think if you can take anything that Oculus is saying at heart as being true, which it's fine if you don't, but if you do, then what this is really at right now, and the way I'm perceiving it, is it's a war of SDKs more so than a war of any specific headset. And if I'm looking at just the SDKs, I have to say, as a person, I really like the approach of efficiency that Oculus is driving here. This may be, in the grand scheme of things, a very minor improvement, the stereoscopic shadow reprojection, but combined with space warp, combined with their whole approach, that if they can somehow get their SDK out there more, and I know that's what they're waiting for, that third party, the name's drawing a blank off the top of my head right now, that's going to do it on a device sort of a compatibility layer. I'd rather use my Vive with the Oculus SDK right now. I guess that's where I'm going than with the Open VR SDK. I think Oculus is winning the SDK war. They haven't found a business. They're not winning the business war and finding a way to get their SDK onto other headsets. And I know they want to. Anyone?
I'm
Chris?
cool on this story. I don't really have much to say, so we can go to the next one.
All right, cool. Yeah, sounds good. So I guess while we were mentioning Steam VR, we should mention that there's a $200 off coupon on Vive.com that is out right now. And this is kind of interesting because I don't really know how to take it. Like, is this kind of like an official response to Oculus lowering their price? But at the same time, they didn't really publicize it. It's just some guy on Reddit who posted a coupon code, which is, you know, kind of weird that it's not announced anywhere if there is a coupon code like this, right?
So I'm honestly, I don't have it up, but it's not even a guaranteed $200 off. You go, someone else will have to look this up, but it's like a gamble, like a roll of the dice. It's somewhere between $50 to $200 off, and I'm pretty sure it's US only. So it's not even a guaranteed $200 off sales price. It's you go somewhere and you get a code, and it's somewhere between 50 to 200. Again, I don't have it up in front of me. I thought we would have the. Anybody? No one saw this?
It's, I did see. Well, actually, Chris sent me this link just before the show. I saw this, and yeah, I mean, it seems like it's not straightforward. It's not. It's almost not a news story because somebody posted this on Reddit, and it's got a code which will give somebody $200 off at Vive.com. But I don't know the ins and outs. I do believe you're right, Steve, on that the it's US only at the moment. So I was just trying to go over to Vive.com and put in this code to see exactly what it gave me. But yeah, it seemed to be sort of well, it's obviously an official thing, but I don't know. It's not sort of like an Oculus discount or anything like that.
You know what's more newsworthy probably is Amazon had a special deal. I don't know if it's still going on, but Palmer Luckey actually tweeted about it, where PlayStation VR, you could get the PlayStation VR headset, a camera, digital codes to 3 different games for $299.99, and Palmer Luckey tweeted about it, and the games were Riggs, Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, and PlayStation VR Worlds. And Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, and PlayStation VR Worlds, those are amazing VR games. That's a really good deal, really good bundle if you already have a PlayStation 4. But like Vive, I don't know, man. HTC.
Yeah, well, that that PlayStation deal, when Palmer Luckey tweeted that, because that is a fantastic deal. Do you take that? Do you take Palmer Luckey tweeting that as just him being a fan of VR and wanting to get everybody on board in VR, or do you take it as being a little dig at Oculus? Because probably I don't know. Yeah,
probably both, really. And that's another deal too, that Amazon deal, where it's not exact. Like, you don't go to Amazon and just see this package deal. You got to like do a couple little things to actually make it work. Like, I think you use the code PSVR games, and then it takes $100 off, but you have to like find the right thing where it adds the camera and it adds those 3 digital games. NeoGAF has a thread about it, and they kind of explain how you actually do it. But yeah, it's always interesting when you get these deals, but it's like there's all these little qualifiers, and it's kind of like your mileage will vary type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this guy on Reddit, I don't know, for whatever reason, his code guarantees the $200 off for the Vive. I just tried it, and I think people are saying like this must be like a glitched code because it's supposed to be one-time use, but like anyone can use it. So yeah, for whatever reason, that's how it works. I just tried it and it works. So for now, you can get $200 off of Vive.
You bought another Vive. That's cool. An extra one.
I wonder if they'll email people that use this code though and say you can't actually get it for that price, because I've had this before where these little glitches happen and you can sort of purchase a laptop for £50 or something. It's a glitch on the system, and you try and do it, and then they'll send you an email a few days later and it cancels it. So yeah.
All right.
Okay, sorry. I found the Reddit link that I was actually looking for. So it was a 1 day only. I don't know if we're still in the, but it's described as a Vive mystery flash sale. So you go there and you have to scratch off a coupon to get this, but it could be anywhere from between 50 to 200 bucks. So yeah, I wasn't making it up. So I'm not exactly sure how you obtain this code, but it's a roll of the dice, and you can get anywhere from $50 to $200 off. But it sounds like this other person on Reddit has publicly posted the $200 off code, so obviously you should use that. But the official channel is that it was a roll of the dice, anywhere $50 to $200 off, which is a very bizarre method of trying to attract a discount to your product. And the bigger picture, I guess, is that I'm not sure HTC can afford to discount the Vive. Ultimately, I think that's what it boils down to. They don't have the software sales that could kind of do a low-cost lead item on the hardware to have the software sales to follow it. And I think this is starting to show.
Yeah, I mean, there was something similar to this. Like, it's not VR related, but the Mavic Pro drone had this same type of thing where you could get like up to $1,000 off the drone, and I tried it and I got like $5 off, so it wasn't that good. But yeah, it's kind of a gamble. All right, well, I guess we'll just move on to Oculus introducing a trial feature, so you can kind of try a game before you buy it, which is cool. And the first game to do this is Defense Grid 2. I'm not really sure. Is that like a tower defense? Did any of you guys see this?
Yeah, it's a tower defense. It's the most award-winning tower defense in VR, and everybody needs to try it. That's kind of how they break it down on the little Oculus page.
I watched the video of it. It didn't really appeal to me, that game, but I think it's a good thing that they're doing this. I mean, people have said this again and again, you know, with VR especially, you need to have these trials of games, if for no other reason than to test if you're able to experience them without having any motion sickness for people that are susceptible with that. So this trial thing, absolutely invaluable. I think this is great. And we've got something similar on Steam, although it's unofficial. You've got the refund policy. So you got demos
on Steam. See, yeah. Oculus doesn't have demos. It's funny that everybody forgets about that. But I remember when I first got my Vive, you can just go batshit insane downloading a ton of demos, a ton of free things. You can just play and play and play. And with Oculus, they do have a lot of free things, and they do give you those bundled games. So all of that is nice. But I don't believe there's a demo period. So hopefully this is like a way for them to give people demos in a way. I think you kind of download the whole, it's like one of those things where you like kind of download the whole game, they unlock a portion of it, and then it's like, okay, now you played it a little bit, now you want to continue, this is the rest of the money that you got to pay, and then boom, it's yours.
Yeah, that's what it's doing with Defense Grid. Specifically, it's I guess they have 5 chapters in their game, but the Oculus store describes it as play the first full chapter of the definitive tower defense strategy game for free and see why it's become one of the most played games on the Rift. If you enjoy Chapter 1, 5 additional chapters await you and are unlocked in a single in-game purchase at a special upgrade price. So I think it's a smart thing to do. It doesn't hurt them to try things like this, and it may lead to more sales, because once you've invested some time in a game, and then if you're enjoying it, you're, I think, much more likely to make the purchase than if you're just browsing the store and or
it
unsure.
Goes both ways though, man. It goes both ways for developers, because like a game we're going to talk about later, some of these games you find out there's a horror element to it, and there's a lot of people, they just can't do horror, and so they might try some of these games that they would have bought. Of course, there's not really that same kind of refund system either, so they're
actually, you know, Anthony, because this is something interesting as well. When you bought you downloaded the demo of Racket NX, and then when you were really excited when the full game came out, but your opinion was they gave too much away in that demo, where it didn't feel like the full game was really worth that money. So that's another side of this. You need to balance, I guess, what you're getting.
I think the long-term studies have shown, like, the reason you don't see demos as much on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 is, and anywhere really, is that studies have shown that demos actually cause more harm than good. It's unfortunate because I love demos, and for VR, demos are awesome for so many reasons. You got the motion sickness reason, which is a big one, but there's also, everybody has different computers. Like I have my 970, you guys got your 1080 Ti's. Your experience with some of these games could be dramatically different than my experience. And if you give somebody a demo, they get to try your game engine and they get to feel what it feels like. And so it's a plus, but man, for companies, sometimes they just lose sales out of it.
I think it'll shake out when some of these games get to be, I say where the bulk of the games are a little closer towards the AAA spectrum, where they're longer experiences and more fleshed. I'm trying to think of like some of my favorite games in the last few years. Bloodborne on PlayStation 4. I absolutely love Bloodborne, and it was a game I wasn't sure about. I ended up renting it, but kind of similar trial purpose. And then I ended up buying it because once I was in it and tried it and absolutely loved it, and I knew that it had another 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours of content, it made it worthwhile. On the other side, if it's maybe, I'll pick on something like Vanishing Realms. I love that game, but if I played it for 30 minutes and then thought, well, it maybe only has another hour left because it's the early days of VR and all these games are short, then the demo, like you mentioned, Anthony, I think can potentially become a harming effect. The only other thing I'll say is that Sony actually, I don't know if they still do because I haven't tried it in a long time, but if you're a PlayStation Plus member, I know during the PlayStation 3 days and maybe early PS4 days, but for sure on the PlayStation 3, they were doing game trials where you could play the first 2 hours of major titles. I believe there was even an Uncharted game or so that you play the first 2 hours of it, and then if you wanted to keep going, you just, the game was fully downloaded and installed. All you had to do was just pay the price and open it up.
Hey, it'd be a cool idea for some of these companies, like if somebody from Oculus or Valve could possibly be watching this. A great idea would be on Xbox, you have the EA early access program, and then Xbox also has this like Xbox channel or whatever it is where you pay $10 a month and there's like old games that they put in there. That would be cool if they did that for VR. Like imagine if Oculus had like a special $10 a month package or $15 a month package, and it would be older games like Chronos, Edge of Nowhere, that type of stuff, but they would take their older catalog and they would shuffle games in there. And Valve could do it even better with Steam because there's just so much stuff,
Anthony, I have great news for you. That's available now in VR.
Viveport? Nobody wants that software on their system. Nobody wants the blue screen of death.
That's exactly where I was going. Yep. It's a great idea. It's just Viveport is Viveport. Like if they could talk Steam or Oculus into doing the same idea, I think people would jump all over it. I know I would.
Yeah. And then, I wish I had this when I bought the Batman game, because I've been trying to open it like every week for months and it still won't open for me. It just doesn't work with my computer. So if there's a trial thing, that'd be great.
Did you ever contact support?
I haven't contacted support. I've just been I don't know. I need to contact them, but it's not, I wish I bought it on Steam now because I could have just refunded it. But yeah, I should talk to Oculus. It's so weird.
I'm guessing you deleted and reinstalled it a couple times already, right?
Yeah, it baffles me. It really does. That's okay. I'll try to get that fixed because I do want to try that out.
Speaking of Batman, it was like $8 somewhere or like $9 on some little indie.
I picked it up. I picked it up with that. Yeah, cool. It's a good price. I've only started playing it, but I could talk about that. Well, I won't talk about it long because it's a little bit old news now. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's all the Oculus news this week, really. So maybe we'll bring up something a little bit smaller, but still really cool. Is Espire 1 debuted a new method of smooth locomotion. And I watched the video. I don't know if any of you guys did, but it's kind of like how Google Earth does it, where it has like a view that's rendered in the middle and it scales in. And then when you stop moving, it expands again. And I thought the cool thing about this was kind of the holodeck thing where they actually map your walls out in the engine rather than it just being a boundary. So I thought that's pretty cool, especially to keep you centered and things like that. Yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I did see this as well, and I thought it was pretty good. As somebody who I don't really suffer from motion sickness from doing these kinds of smooth locomotion games or anything like that, but for people that do, I feel like they're missing out in some ways in certain games that do have this ability. And this Espire 1, I didn't know a lot about this game, but this video made me have sort of look into it a little bit more. It looks really interesting. It seems to be like a cross between, I think somebody else has made this comparison between something like Onward and Budget Cuts, because it's a stealth game and it uses this. And I'm interested to try these types of games in VR. You know, Budget Cuts, when we played that, it was interesting to have that stealth mechanic in there. But with regards to this, I think the good thing that these developers are doing is the fact that they're building this locomotion method into the narrative of the game. So you're right, Chris, you know, you stand in this central area which is mapped to your play space, but it's fully rendered. It's a fully rendered sort of holodeck kind of room, and the world is projected around that. So you're playing a normal VR game, and then what it will do is, if you want to use smooth locomotion, it will shrink the world down to something the size of a tablet in front of you. And this is all explained within the narrative of the game, I believe, anyway. And you'll see the rendered scene of the holodeck-like room that you're in. So I think that's a great way of doing it. And they've also got the ability to turn this off. You know, if you don't suffer from motion sickness, you can just play the game normally with smooth locomotion. It looks really good. I'm really interested to see this game. I think this has been great publicity for it, because I'd heard of the game, but I hadn't really looked into it before. But I'm really interested in it now.
Yeah, it looks like a really cool game. And this kind of makes me think, like, when is the point when all these different studios making different smooth locomotion methods, like, when is there going to be like an engine support for this? Because I feel like there's going to be one that's super good, and like, I don't know, I feel like Oculus or something needs to buy it, and like, you know, there's going to be one killer locomotion method that people are going to want to license or something. I don't know. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
Well, I didn't watch the video on Espire, so I can't really comment about that. Listening to Gary talk about it, it does sound interesting. But about locomotion as a whole, to your question, Chris, I'm kind of torn. Like, being in VR from the early days, we've talked in the past about how Valve was say you have room scale, and then when you need to leave your room, you teleport. And that's how they were trying to push it, and that seemed to work for a lot of people. But then Onward came along, and they just changed the game, honestly. Like, now, ever since Onward, it seems like everyone wants smooth locomotion. So if anything, the community has, for now, settled on that for the most part. I know developers are hesitant, because I know there's some people out there, maybe a non-vocal majority that still suffer from motion sickness. Maybe they're not.
You know what I think it is, Steve? It's all in their mind, man. It's all in these people's minds. I mean, not 100%, but I think a lot of it is. I think because before I ever got VR, I was legitimately nervous about having VR, and like, what is this going to do? Is this going to freak me out? Am I going to see something that's going to scare me, where I like have a real problem in real life, you know? And people imagine that VR is like better than it really is, and it's more powerful than it really is. And I think a lot of it is in people's heads, because when we've gotten used to VR. We're comfortable with VR. We've tried it so many times. Now we can fly around with no problem at all. I remember the first time I played this game called Astral Domini or something like that. It was an early demo for the Vive.
I remember that one, yeah.
It had trackpad locomotion, and I was doing trackpad locomotion, and I was like, oh, this doesn't feel quite right. And now I'm in a game like Gunheart, and I'm freaking blazing around the map at like 99 miles per hour.
Well, this is an interesting point, because somebody, was it Chet Falisek from Valve? Somebody mentioned on Twitter at one point that there's no such thing as VR legs. And I honestly think that there must be, because just from using VR over the past year, I've never really suffered from motion sickness, but there have been things that have made me feel uncomfortable. And just using these things, like, for an example, racing games, when I first played a racing game, it really hit me hard. I didn't get sick, but it was a very uncomfortable feeling. And now it doesn't affect me at all. What are your guys' thoughts? Steve, what do you think of this?
I think he's right and he's wrong, and I think you're right and you're wrong. Like there is some modicum of getting used to it. I've experienced it myself, but it's not this thing. It's not like learning how to walk or learning how to ride a bike. Like once you do it, you never forget it. You don't lose it. I know, like earlier this year when I went on vacation for 2 weeks and didn't play VR for a little more than 2 weeks, and I was still finishing up Resident Evil every episode. I get it in here somehow, and I'm not trying to, honestly. But I was still finishing that game, and of course it's smooth locomotion. And when I came back from vacation, after having not played anything at all, like I felt it. I had to recenter myself, and then it goes away. And then last week I was talking about alien isolation. Like some days it'll affect me differently. I don't think I suffer from VR sickness. I've never gotten sick and vomited or anything like that. But there are days where a game that didn't bother me, 2 or 3 days prior, I feel it a little bit on one day, and then the next time I play it, I don't feel it at all. It's kind of up and down and inconsistent, and there must be other factors at play. It's not as simple as getting VR legs and now I'm free and in the clear. So I think there's an element of it, but we also have to keep in mind that Chet and the four of us, we're all like super fans of this stuff. We play it all the time. The Joe Walmart or whatever, the mainstream person that we want to eventually dip his toes into VR, they may not play it to the degree we do. So if they go 2-3 weeks without playing a game and then jump in and have a nausea, it's a problem. So I think developers and people like Valve and Oculus have to think about it and start thinking of ways to solve it. But there may not be just one fix, one solution.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead, Chris. I was just going to say, because I've not heard from you about this subject, have you ever suffered from motion sickness in VR?
I have, like, especially in the dev kit, one days when there wasn't positional tracking. That was a mess. Yeah, but not that much. Like my neighbor can't do anything other than teleporting. Like he would instantly get sick. So I don't know why it happens to certain people. It's but
how much has your neighbor tried to play? Like how many times do you think he's played your VR?
It hasn't been that much. Yeah, not nearly as much as me. Probably like 2 hours total ever. Probably.
Okay.
Some people decide in their head, this gets me sick, and they make that decision, and then they're not going to bend from that. And they're expecting to be sick.
Yeah, I think that there could be a part of that. I don't think it's entirely, because there must be degrees, because like I say, there are things that make me uncomfortable. If I was to play Alien Isolation, just go crazy walking around these rooms at top speed and turning constantly, I'm pretty sure it'd affect me eventually, and it certainly makes me feel uncomfortable even playing it for long periods of time now. But so there must be degrees of it, but maybe there is a part of people expecting this is going to affect them in a negative way, and they're doing that.
This is just another anecdote, and that's all any of us can do is give our own subjective anecdotes and experiences. But my wife, she has probably, if I had to estimate, put 40 hours, 50 hours maybe into VR over the last year and a half. So she's not brand new, and she's of course not spent anywhere near as much time as me. But a couple months ago, she wanted to try Farpoint. And on Farpoint, you hold the aim controller, and it's got thumbsticks on it, so it's smooth locomotion. And as soon as she got going, she's like, "Oh, this is making me feel nauseous." And I tried to Anthony's point, like at that point, when I believe what she experienced was real. It did make her feel nauseous, but at that point, it hit her brain, and she had already made up her mind that she couldn't go any further. And I tried to talk her into it and coach her. I was like, well, just give it a little bit. See if you kind of get over the hump. It may settle for you. But she was already in the process of taking everything off, and she had kind of set her mind. So again, I still think it's a little bit of both. Like it is a mental thing, but I think it's a mental thing because people experience it maybe even briefly in the very beginning when it comes to a smooth locomotion game.
Yeah, it stinks because like Oculus and Valve, they're trying to ride this fine line of not having this giant news article come out that's like motion sickness kills VR. But I think we're past that finally, which is good. It feels like, now that everyone's starting to get their hands on VR, that we're kind of past the hump of worrying about a news story ruining it. So I think that's probably why some developers are more easily kind of integrating this stuff without hesitating as much. But I don't know, just all speculation, I guess. So Anthony, want to talk about Megaton Rainfall a little bit?
Yeah, so Megaton Rainfall, this is back at E3 2016 when Sony first shown off PlayStation VR, announced the price, announced the release date, and all that type of stuff. They had a montage of all kinds of PlayStation VR games that were going to be coming soon. And one of them was this game called Megaton Rainfall. And it looked super cool. It's made by a developer called Pentadimensional Games, which is a really cool name as well. And basically, it was like this superhero thing, but we only saw like 20 seconds of it in this E3 2016 montage, right? And then, so maybe a number of months later, they had a full trailer for it, and it showed off a little bit more of the game. And then after that, the game basically like disappeared from the face of the earth. And a lot of people thought that this game had actually been canceled. I was talking to some people on the PlayStation VR subreddit. This was a number of months, or maybe like a month ago. And we were talking about the games we're most excited for PlayStation VR. And I had mentioned Megaton Rainfall. And I was like, well, what about Megaton Rainfall? And a lot of people are like, is that game? I don't even think that game's still coming out. I think they stopped development of that game. So there was a lot of rumors like that. So we get this trailer, a brand new trailer. And I don't know if you guys have seen this trailer. If you haven't, you should definitely check it out. But what it looks like, the easiest way to explain it is if you've played around with Google Earth, this looks similar to Google Earth with the exception that it shows two hands on your screen like this, right? And you can freaking, like you could zoom like you're flying around like Superman or Iron Man. You're flying through the air, incredible speeds. You can go up out of the atmosphere and be looking down at the earth and then come back down, and it like shows the cities being created and everything. It looks, honestly, you look at this trailer and you're like, this can't be real. It can't really look like this. It's not really going to look like this. But Gary, it seems like you saw the trailer. What did you think about it?
I did, yeah. It looked really good, actually. Yeah, and it's a PSVR title at the moment, but I think it is coming out on Steam as well after a short exclusivity period. And we've seen a few of these games where they had these trailers at E3 2016, but we haven't really seen a lot from them. There was another one I was just looking up. You reminded me of it, actually, called Golem. I don't know if anybody remembers that game. And there was a news story that came out a couple of weeks ago about this title, saying that they're releasing some kind of soundtrack, a pre-release soundtrack for this game. So it looks like it is coming out at some point. Musical prequel, sorry, it's not a soundtrack, it's a musical prequel.
Well, Marty O'Donnell, the Halo composer, that's his studio that's doing Golem.
Oh, okay, right.
That's Marty O'Donnell's
so that makes
studio.
sense, yeah. But yeah, back to Megaton Rainfall. It looks really like a really good title. The one thing to mention as well, on this trailer, it looked like it was using Move controllers. Now, from what I've read, it doesn't appear like it's going to be released with Move controller support, although that might be added later, I don't know. So that's something to keep in mind.
I think the trailer looked too good to be PlayStation VR, in my opinion. Now, maybe it was, but I think that was like the Steam version. Like usually when people have a trailer, they'll use the best looking version they got.
Yeah, you might be right about that, but it's still, I mean, even so, we've seen sort of similarities between these games. I played, I'll mention it again, Batman Arkham VR. That was a title that came out on PSVR, and when I was playing it yesterday, it was just absolutely fantastic looking graphics. I was thinking, how did they manage this on their PSVR? Presumably it was slightly lower resolution or something like that. So, it's give and take with these things.
But like, Steve, haven't you ever been in Google Earth and thought, man, if they could just make this a video game where like I'm zooming down through these buildings and like the canyons and stuff.
It reminds me of there was a Richie's Plank experience has a mode. It has nothing to do with actually walking the plank, but you're in that same universe and you can paint.
Iron Man, yeah.
Yeah, the Iron Man mode is actually not the superhero Iron Man, but yeah, you can paint, and the way you paint is that you fly around the city, kind of like when a helicopter, an airplane, or something will write a marriage proposal or something out of the smoke. Richie's Plank has something like that, and that's how that feels, and that's what I think of when I see the trailer for Megaton Rainfall. With the exception being is that Megaton Rainfall looks really good. Looks like it has a sort of an apocalyptic alien invasion type story to it. It looks like really good polish. It looks like it's going to be honestly a major release for the VR industry. So I think it looks great, and I look forward to it. And I hate the ambiguity. I get business deals. I get, Sony maybe funded something to get the exclusivity period. But I hate the ambiguity around, well, sometime later for PC VR. I wish they could just come out and say it, because Archangel did. When that game came to PlayStation first, but I think it was pretty well known that it was going to be just a relatively short period, and they were able to date the PC version. Wish the same would happen here, and it might.
The exclusivity though. Like if it's under 90 days, like I'm cool with that. Like I wish we had more of that, because sometimes they do these 6-month and 1 year exclusivities, and it's like, God damn, like people on the Vive that don't want to ever mess with Revive, they got to wait 1 year for Mage's Tale. That is harsh.
Yeah, I was watching this trailer. I'm sure some of the viewers saw my reaction in the little corner at the bottom, but like, this is the coolest trailer I've ever seen for a VR game. It's so awesome. Wow. I'm excited for that. Cool. All right. So I guess the next thing is Rez Infinite is released August 9th. It was like a surprise release on Rift and Vive. And then it's going to come to Daydream later this year. So I'd never have played this yet. So what do you guys think of that?
Gary, I know you were thinking about maybe picking this up. Did you?
I didn't know, only because, I'm still in two minds. I might pick it up after the show. Who knows? Some people have been saying about this. I don't know if you can speak to this, because I know both you and Anthony have played this on PSVR, but some people were talking about how the 3D doesn't look that 3D. Now, when I'm watching trailers of this, it looks really impressive, and I'm trying to imagine that game in 3D in the VR headset, and I just think it looked fantastic. What's your experience of this? Is this something that you noticed?
Yes, on the PlayStation. I have not played it on Steam or Oculus. It's not that it's completely flat. It doesn't have a lot of volume to it, I should say, and I don't think it's anything due to the way they've intentionally done anything. I think it's just the nature of translating that game to modern times and in VR. So there's not a ton of just not a ton of depth, but it plays really nice. Personally, like I have a sort of a love-hate with Rez Infinite. Like I get it. It's a great experience. I'm glad I got to experience it. I think it's a little bit on the pricey side, and for me personally, it's not something I'll go back and play over and over and over again. So the value proposition is, you'll get an hour, maybe hour, 20 minutes out of it for the $20 or whatever it's going for. So in my opinion, that's a little bit on the steep side, but it is a really good hour. Like you won't be mad you spent an hour playing it. Like it's a great experience. I just wish it was $10. If it was $10, I would be screaming from the rooftops on this game.
Yeah, that's my take too.
Cool. Well, that's pretty good. I guess that's it for news this week. We'll now move on to what you've been playing, and I'll have to pass it on to you guys because I haven't been at my apartment and my Rift's permanently up there, so I haven't had a chance to do anything, which sucks. But yeah, who wants to start? I guess Gary, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I'll just mention briefly a few things that I've been trying, because I know we've got some discussion on a slightly bigger game later on. But the few things I briefly want to mention is I tried last night. I've been busy all week, and then yesterday evening I sort of dedicated yesterday evening to VR, and I've been trying all of these things in the space of about 4 or 5 hours last night. So I want to talk about, well, Sansar is something that I've been meaning to get to for a long time. This is sort of a social VR from somebody from one of the makers of Second Life. So I wanted to try this. I briefly went in last night, and it's set up in a very similar way to Second Life, where you've got a series of rooms that you can go in. Unfortunately, in my brief time in there, I didn't actually get to interact with anybody. Nobody else was in there, and it's just a beta at the moment, so it's not sort of an official release or anything like that. It's just an open beta that anybody can go out and try. So, you know, I recommend people try it, because it's, from what I saw, it's got a lot of potential, but yeah, it's just a little bit early days at the moment. The other thing, I tried this, and I'll ask you guys, I don't know if you tried this Spiderman VR web-slinging demo that was put up on Reddit by a user, and it was just a little demo that he quickly made in Unity, and it's just something that a lot of people were requesting, really, where you can go through the city and web-sling like Spiderman, like in that demo that was released, the Homecoming demo that was like a promotional tool for the film. Everybody was talking about how it was not really great because it didn't give you what you wanted. Well, this demo gives you that in a better way. It's very basic, but it gives you an idea.
Gary, I tried this, and it's really cool. It is cool, but I never quite got the web slinging. Like I never got into the rhythm of it. Every once in a while I would do it, and it would shoot me up really high, but then I'd be like, okay, so I'm supposed to shoot this web and then this web and then this web, but I could never get the feel of it, but I didn't spend that much time on it.
No, I didn't spend a huge amount of time on it. And I think from what I've heard other people say is you do get to grips with how it works. And I had a few moments where I was pretty proud of myself going between these buildings. But yeah, like you, occasionally you could sort of pull back on it and it send you a little bit higher. But generally, I felt like I was slowly descending as I'm going through these buildings. I'm slowly descending, unable to get any higher. And also, I thought somebody mentioned that you were able to cling onto the walls and climb up the walls, but I don't think that is a feature in this. So the developer of this is actually going to make some kind of full game, obviously not with the Spider-Man license, but something based on this. So I'll look forward to seeing that if ever.
I wonder what company has the rights to Spider-Man video games. I know it was Activision for a while, but I don't know if Activision has it right now. But you would think, we've played Lone Echo, right? And you know when you put your hands on a surface on Lone Echo and it just feels so good. Imagine if you could do that up the sides of buildings. And then we've played Windlands. And for me, like Windlands, going back to motion sickness, some people get motion sickness. Windlands, I was freaking flying around, no problems whatsoever, zipping around on those trees and everything whooshing by me. So if you combine that Lone Echo grip with the Windland swing and you give me a relatively decent looking New York City, I mean, that would be game of the year right there. I hope somebody's working on this.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about like how it compares to Windlands, because I've played that game quite a bit in the past. So like not having a chance to do this Spider-Man web sling thing, is it similar kind of?
It's mechanic? Different. It feels a lot different.
It's harder to learn.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't hold your hand. I feel like, because I was expecting a Windlands kind of experience when I went into this, but it's surprising when you first go in, and it seems like the developer has done this in a very, very realistic. I say realistic, but I don't know how realistic it is. But it feels much more difficult than Windlands. Let me put it that way. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I think if you get a little bit of practice in this, I think you could start. Just the fact that you can actually traverse these buildings without crashing into anything would be a sense of satisfaction enough, really. But yeah, I'll just.
Oh, you know what? Do you guys remember that game, that demo, Grapply, 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 and you're like you're like flying through and there's cars going by. You don't remember that demo?
I remember the name. I'm just trying to think.
That was another one where it kind of had that Spider-Man feel, and that thing just disappeared into the mist. I haven't heard a single thing about it.
Yeah. Just quickly as well, final couple of things, because I think I can talk on some of the games that the other guys have been playing. But I did try Batman Arkham VR because it's in this. I found this code for a website where you can get it relatively cheap. So I put that in, and I've played for about an hour so far. Maybe not quite that long. I don't know. I've just got out of the alleyway scene. So I've gone through all the tutorials. I've gone through the first bit and just done the alleyway scene and then a little bit of the section beyond that. So I don't know how far through this experience it is, but I'm really enjoying it. The graphics fantastic. I'm probably just going to repeat what a lot of people have already said about this experience, because it's not a new title. It's been out on PSVR and now it's sort of been out on Steam VR as well for quite a while. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it and I'm going to finish this. I'm pleased I picked it up for this price. I'll have to see whether I think it's worth it for the full price once I've finished. But at the moment, it seems quite limited. And if this is just it just carries on throughout the experience, what I've played so far, I think I don't know if I'd pay full price for it. But it's good and it's worth trying at the moment.
Are you super sampling the hell out of it?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm running 2.0 in Steam VR, and then I think it's got 220% in Batman VR. Now, I don't know if that overrides the Steam VR or adds to it. I don't know. But performance is good. So, yeah, I'm pretty...
Do you know, so in on the PlayStation version, at some point after I'd already played the game through, because I picked it up at launch, and I paid full price for it, but you have to consider at the time the available software library was much lower and the novelty of VR was there, and it still felt so damn cool to put the suit on and be Batman. But at some point, maybe, I don't know, 2 months after release, something like that, they released a patch that enabled a sort of a foveated rendering on the game. Does the Steam version have that, or did you notice? Because it'll be notably blurrier on the edges, but they're able to put more horsepower into the center of the image, which is where you're looking.
Yeah, I actually didn't notice it, but when I went into the options, you have the ability to turn that feature off if you want to. So I didn't turn it off because I hadn't noticed it before that. But yeah, it says it gives you a percentage. I think you can change the percentage of the foveated rendering on the outskirts. So I think it's set to something like 30% lower resolution, and you can alter this figure. But yeah, I didn't notice it, and yeah, performance was good.
Hey, you did the penguin part, right? You saw the penguin?
I've heard, no, the part I'm on is actually probably just before that, because
my bad.
No, that's okay. I knew the penguin was in it because they had mentioned that the penguin, you need to find out. But I'm actually on the building where some bloke's being beaten up by these gangsters.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, that's kind of like Quinero. Did you think about Quinero when you were doing that part? Do you remember that Quinero?
Yeah.
Where?
Actually, yeah, I didn't think about that, but no, that's a good comparison. Actually, yeah, that's a really good idea for gaming. This does sort of do something like that, actually, yeah. Very finally, then, the other thing I've been trying is, because we were going to mention this in news, but we have added other things. It's the fact that Firefox web browser version 55 now supports web VR. So I thought I'd jump on this because I've been interested in web VR for a while. I sort of dabbled in it. I half-heartedly tried to try it a few weeks ago, but I didn't have too much joy with that. So I thought, now Firefox are doing this, I'll give it a go. And I went in and tried a few experiences. I was very impressed with the quality of the experiences that I tried. I tried this thing called Cecropia's Hall, which is sort of like a museum kind of experience where you can just go around. It's very basic, but you can go around. The graphics are very good. I also tried an experience called A Painter, which is a tilt brush kind of thing. Very similar to tilt brush in the way it looks and works, actually. The one thing I'll say is, at the moment, just trying all these experiences using web VR, it's performance is the main concern for me. There's some issues that I have with web VR that I don't get in sort of standard VR experiences. obviously you get the usual performance problems where everything will sort of judder slightly if you're having problems. But then also I had this problem which I don't usually get, where if I'm turning my head, the actual world will follow the headset and then sort of catch up with itself. Presumably it's streaming certain parts of the code, or I don't know exactly how it works, but presumably this is to do with it being an internet connection that is causing these problems more so than the actual optimization. I'm not too sure, but it was interesting to try, and I'm looking forward to trying a few more of these things as well.
Gary, quick question. So do you need to download a special version of Firefox, or do you need to go into the options and do something? Like how did you actually get this onto your headset? Like,
yeah, it's pretty straightforward now. Now they've updated this. If you download a Mozilla Firefox version 55 just from their website, very easy to find, download that version, and then if you just do a Google search for web VR websites, all you have to do is, once you've loaded, sort of fired up that browser, then you can just copy that link into that browser, and then it will load into the browser. You then have, once it's loaded the web page, in the bottom right corner, you'll have a little headset icon. And then all you have to do is, as long as you've got something like Steam VR running, you click on that icon and then it'll appear in your website, in the headset. It's very, very easy, actually. I was expecting more hassle to get this working.
Once you're in the headset, do you have to take it off to do something else, or can you do things while you're in there, like back out of it and go to something else?
From my experience, when I tried it yesterday, I had to back out. I had to take the headset off, copy a new link in to the web browser. Now, whether that's just something, because I wasn't really looking into that when I was trying it, but so there might be a way to do it within the headset, and this is probably one of the main things. It's still, at this stage, for me, when I tried it, it was a little bit of a hassle to do this. So it'd be great if that feature currently exists in Firefox. I just didn't see it, that's all.
Yeah, I've seen people complaining that Steam VR is randomly opening when they're going to certain websites now in Firefox, because like if there's a web VR element, it'll just open Steam VR. So,
all right.
But I'll have to try that sometime. Cool. Is that it first?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think anything else that I've got to discuss, the other guys will bring up anyway.
Cool.
All right, I'll jump in. I've only played 2 games this week, and the first one, thanks to Tripwire Interactive, they sent us a preview of Killing Floor Excursion, and it's a good game. What I'll kind of just kind of early comments on it, really, because I haven't been able to spend too much time with it. We only very recently got access to it, but to me, it feels like I've not played any of the other Killing Floor games, so I don't have that as a reference as it translates to this VR version. But to me, honestly, the first thing that like popped in my mind once I went through the tutorials and actually got into a level, it felt like Brookhaven, which is a good thing, but it felt like, you know, in Brookhaven, where you stood in one spot and you battled off waves of zombies and the other creatures in a full 360. And you had whatever guns and stuff you selected at the beginning of the mission. In this game, you traverse and you locomote, and there are health packs and there's ammo to pick up and there's different guns, and you get knives that you can place on your back. So it's like it feels a lot like what Brookhaven, you know, like if they had updated or released Brookhaven 2 or something to that. It's just a more fully feature-rich version of that game, and there's a story to it. The combat feels really good. The shooting feels good. You have to be very precise with the shooting, kind of similar to maybe Arizona Sunshine, where I found myself making sure I line up the front sight of the handgun and the back sights, making sure all that lined up to get the headshots. But so far, you know, I don't have too much that I can say because I've only maybe played an hour. But I'm really digging it. I do know there's some boss battles. There's multiple levels. It has multiple locomotion modes, and I know this is something that's very important. By default, the game it's a teleport-only game. But if you go into the menus, they have an option that says experimental smooth locomotion, whatever. I forget exactly what they named it as, but basically you can turn it on, and with your left controller, you have normal smooth locomotion, but they keep the teleport active with your right controller, so you can kind of bounce between the two locomotion methods on the fly. And I think you'll need to. There are times that I've had to teleport because they do a good job of having things creep up on you, and out of nowhere you got to spin around real fast and take out a bad guy. And there's a lot of versatility. I know I'm just kind of rambling different points on because I can't, I haven't spent that much time with it, but there's been so far I've seen several different types of enemies, and it all just looks and plays good. The combat's great. The graphics look good. It's dark. It's spooky. It has a narrative. It really checks a lot of the checkbox that me personally as a gamer looks for when I play a new title. And I think for the most part, everyone's going to enjoy this game.
Yeah. So I tried it too, and I don't know, man. There's lots of things to like here. There really is. And one of the things that stood out to me, and it's something I've been complaining about, is that when you fire a gun, there is an oomph, and like there, bam, when you fire a gun, maybe I just had my volume up really loud or something, but like when I'm firing the gun, it feels good. There's a part in the very, very beginning. It's not really a spoiler so much, but you actually have like a two-handed gun and you're shooting like a machine gun in this one little section of the tutorial, I believe. And it really feels like the vibration and stuff, like when you're actually shooting. Remember when I was talking about gun heart and I said it's kind of like a pea shooter, like you don't really feel like you're shooting anything. This game, you really feel like you're shooting. That really stood out to me. The other thing that stood out to me was when you go through the tutorial and then like the whole story and everything, it's almost like they said, okay, well, we're going to have teleport, and we're going to have this teleport where you can turn your body to whatever direction. And we're going to make our story wrap around the fact that you're teleporting and you're doing this and you're doing that. So they kind of like baked it into the story about almost even baking in like the fact that you can run into a wall or something, be careful of your play space and stuff like that. They kind of baked that into the tutorial, which was interesting, but eventually people will have to stop doing this because everybody can't do that. But it was cool that they kind of baked that in to make it part of the world. And when you're in the world, it's like, I mean, again, I hope this isn't any kind of a spoiler thing, but it's like this simulation that you're in. So you have these really creepy monsters that you're dealing with. But when you shoot them, when they die, they like, they like break away into like these digital bits. And so when you watch them like fade away into these digital bits as part of the simulation that is going on, the nice thing about that is it kind of helps relax you a little bit from the horror angle, because there is definitely a horror angle in this game. This game is not for the faint of heart. Like, I think there's going to be some people that might get this game because it's the big Oculus game of the month, and they're going to realize, oh shit, I can't really play this game. It's a little too intense for me. I have a thing for spiders, and there is a enemy that is like a human zombie, but combined with a spider. And it's pretty freaking freaky. And the violence, or I mean, the action, the gameplay, the melee attack is pretty visceral. You get these knives and you can chop these guys up. You can samurai slice them. And you have your guns, and it is a management thing too. It's like, do I put my knife away? I have this flashlight, and it's like, I want to have my flashlight out like this. But then if I'm doing that, then this hand is taken up and I only have one gun here. And the gun has 8 shots. And then when those 8 shots run out, it takes a while to reload. And that's when I really need my knife. So you have to balance all of those things, which adds a little bit.
You can turn your flashlight on and then put it back on your chest, and it'll keep the light on for you.
Yeah, but it's not the same of being able to do that. Yeah, but that is nice. Yeah, you can attach it to your chest. And the flashlight has 2 modes. It has like regular light mode, and then it has kind of like a scanning mode where you're scanning you're in a simulation that is like being corrupted, and things are happening to it, and they kind of want you to fix it along the way. And so as you're dealing with like the zombies and the monsters that you're dealing with, you're also trying to find these things that are out of place, and you use your flashlight like a scanning mechanism. It's a cool game, and it has a lot of high intense action, but I've barely touched the game. I maybe have played an hour, so it's really, I can't like give any definitive statement on it at all. But I would just say that it might not be for everyone. Maybe don't buy it immediately. Maybe hear a few reviews, watch a few gameplay videos. People that love horror, though, should absolutely eat this up.
Yeah, I played the first level as well of this game, and yeah, I was pretty impressed with it. And that's the first level. Once you get out the tutorial, I don't know if you guys felt this, but the tutorial was a little bit long-winded. It took a long time to get through, and you're doing very, very simple things, really. And I just wanted to get through that tutorial. It was sort of explaining things that we've been explained to before.
The tutorial is like made for non-VR people, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good thing, you know, but it's, I wish there was some way you could sort of expedite that a little bit, just to give you an overview of the tutorial rather than the full thing. But then I jumped into the first level and went through that, and that's one thing I noticed when I went into this, because I knew it was a horror game and it had zombies and things like this in it. But when I first went into that, the first thing that struck me was the atmosphere of this forest that you find yourself in was really, really good. And for some reason, I had this image of something out of Stranger Things. Weirdly, I don't know where that came from, but it just had that vibe of Stranger Things for some reason when I first went in there. But then that's quickly evaporated as soon as you start experiencing these zombies that are, I mean, they're very well rendered and actually very well animated. One thing I want to say about this is the enemies are very well animated, and they'll come to you, and they if you do pause this game, I mean, it's difficult to, but if you can just sort of pause and appreciate the models for a second, they are very, very well rendered. But I didn't do that too often, because I've got to be honest, this is a scary game. This is it's jump scares there, that you've got these zombies coming up at you from all angles, the same as in the Brookhaven experiment, the demo that I played of that. Very similar to that. Suddenly you'll turn around and a zombie will be right on top of you. But very good what I played, actually. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if it's differentiating itself from other things that I've played enough. That's my main concern with it. I think that I've played very similar games to this before. However, I've got to say the premise of it is quite interesting. You know, that you're playing through this, as Anthony says, you're playing through sort of a simulation kind of version of certain things. And I did like that aspect of it. And I'd be interested to see where the game takes that premise.
You know, the 3D audio, I just got reminded, like, you hear footsteps, like the 3D audio is good. You will hear things going on, and it's our lizard brain, man. We're in a situation like that. You hear something, you have to look.
I should have said that, actually. That was one thing I wanted to bring up as well. That in fact, from the very beginning of this, where you're in a room and you can hear people talking behind a glass section, for me, I was thinking, I actually noticed, this was something that I noticed, which is not something I notice normally when playing, but I was thinking these headphones that are on my Oculus Rift are doing such a fantastic job of convincing me that these people are actually in that next room behind glass, which is a difficult thing to simulate in some ways. And yet I didn't feel like it was forced upon me or anything. I just felt like it was real. And that was something that really impressed me.
Yeah, I love the audio. Now, do you guys, did you notice, like, when in the heat of battle, that occasionally it would go into a slow motion effect?
Yeah.
Do either of you know how that is activated? It just seems like it would maybe every third clip or so, like the first shot out of the clip or something.
It's like the glory kill mode.
Yeah, but sometimes it would be like there would be no zombies and then one would come up, like just the one by itself, and the first shot I would take, it would do the slow motion effect, which is really cool. I don't know if it's completely randomized or if there's something I can do to make it happen. And it's also happened on a knife swing for me once. I swiped at one of the faster, stronger zombies.
Yeah.
And
you know what? I got to mention this to everybody out there. move stuff out of the way. This is a game where you will smash your freaking monitor. You will smash your TV. I swear, because when you're swinging a knife, you know what this game reminds me of? It does remind me of Brookhaven from the standpoint that, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I broke my controller playing Brookhaven. I damaged it because there's this metal thing right here, and I smacked it when I was like way out of my boundary. And this game in Brookhaven, the reason I broke it is I was playing it like Michonne. I had gotten a knife out and I was slicing people I was just like, I'm going to be a pure visceral knife killer person, and I'm just going to slash the hell out of these people. And Incursion, oh man, I was swinging my controllers everywhere. Be careful with your monitors, people.
Yep. Okay, well, I think we gave our early look at that game. We'll probably talk about it more as we get more time with it. Because again, I think we've all kind of played a similar amount as really as that first area. So I think the game has lots of potential. Anybody else? We going into the next game?
Yeah, I tried this game called. See, where is it here? It's War Robots VR. Okay, so there was a demo that people were talking about on the Vive subreddit. Archangel is a game that recently came out, and it got a lot of excitement and stuff. But everybody was like, oh man, it's on rails. It's on rails, so I don't want to play it, blah, blah, blah. And so now this demo came out for this other game where it's not on rails. What it is, you're in a mech, but it actually uses a controller. It doesn't use your motion controls. It's either a controller or a keyboard and mouse. So this is a game that you'd probably play sitting in a chair, and you get like your Xbox controller or whatever. And so they have a demo, free demo. Anybody can try it out. And it's really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun with it. No motion sickness. You have like machine guns and missiles. Gary, I think you played this one a little bit. You have anything to say about this?
Nothing too much to add, really. I think, yeah, it's really good. And you can tell that the developers of this have thrown everything into this short demo, because it is short. It's probably, I don't know, what do you think? Maybe 5 minutes long in total. But it's sort of really action packed, and it has some little set pieces. You know, they're not going to blow you away or anything, but there's some little set pieces in there as well that take place in a very short space of time. Now, I was under the impression that this was a demo for a full game that might be coming out in the future. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I really enjoyed this. And you can probably, I think, Anthony, you said you played through it twice, haven't you? So, I mean, I think you could easily get some enjoyment out of this a few times.
Yeah, it's like 7 or 8 minutes probably. But you know what? The city that they create, like, see, the thing is, if you're going to make me into a giant robot, the thing that you really need to do, if you're going to make that convincing, is you need to put things on the ground that are miniaturized, but you need to make them look realistic. And the nice thing that I liked about this little demo that I tried is there were a lot of realistic cars and stuff that were parked on the street that looked kind of like real cars. Now, if you stared at them for a long time, the illusion kind of breaks down. But as you're just playing the game and you see these things in the street, it looks pretty good. I like what they have going on here. My worry is, though, what happened is, so I play this demo, right? And then I took the headset off and I went back to my computer, and there was like this pop-up thing, and it's like, try the mobile game, you know, iOS and Android. And it's almost like this VR, I don't know what the story is with this, but it almost seemed to me like this VR demo that they made was just promoting these mobile games. And I really hope that's not the case. I hope that whoever made this demo is working on a full-length game, because this was enjoyable. It was fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think this could easily translate to a full game. If anybody, I mean, just the problem I have, and this is something I mentioned to you, Anthony, when we were talking about this, about how I worry how much they could make this into a full game, only because they pack so much into this short space of time. If you were to play a full game of this, it takes so much work to get that level of sort of action over a prolonged period. I don't know how well that would work, but really enjoyable, definitely worth trying.
Cool. I guess that's it for games other than the one we're going to talk about at the end, right? Yeah.
Yep, I don't have
okay.
anything else.
Yep.
All right, cool. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Lone Echo this week. The first half of our discussion will be spoiler free, I think, and then we'll do that. And that'll be the last thing we do. So if you guys haven't finished it, then you can leave then. But yeah, who wants to kick this off?
Anthony, I know you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah. So okay. So like when Lone Echo first came out, I've been kind of slow with the game. Like I still have not finished this game, and it's interesting because it's like there are so many incredible things about this game. Like you had all these threads of people praising the game, and in the beginning, I wasn't really like feeling what a lot of these people were saying. And so, I mean, I was like, yeah, this game is cool, but like, I don't see this magical journey that everybody else is having. But I'm telling you, I have had certain moments in this game where you're just doing such natural things and you're just existing in this world. And this world is like, you can get immersed. You can get so immersed in this game. I'm starting to get a feel for the controls better than I ever got them. And what it really is, like I mentioned this with my Spiderman comment, but being able to put your hands physically onto these objects and grab and have that stickiness and being able to pull and grab along, and you're kind of pulling yourself along, it just feels perfect. Like it just feels like the only way they can make that even better is if like you had gloves and like on the tip of your fingers, it was like giving you a feedback or something. I mean, other than that, they did about as well a job as you could possibly do. And then the idea of like hitting your head to turn on your light and hitting your wrist and physically hitting your wrist, like all of that stuff, what it does is it kind of just buys you into the experience. And well, I don't want to get into spoiler territory yet, but I had a situation where I had an encounter that scared the living daylights out of me. And I'll talk about more when we get to the spoilers. But the reason it scared me so much is because you get locked into the world because of the way everything is working. Like you scan something, right? And then you get this glass that you pull out and you can place it anywhere. And you're doing everything with real, like you close the glass out by just pointing your finger. Like you don't hit a button. Everything is touch. Everything is tactile. You can have multiple of these things. You can take these glass things out and you can flick them way out there. It's just, so there is some real magical stuff going on. But I did also want to talk about like my biggest disappointments with the game. And basically no game is perfect, right? No game is perfect. But one of the things that does kind of irritate me about Lone Echo is I've had this happen a number of times where you get to a certain scenario and you have to do this, that, and the other thing, right? And you get to this scenario, and if you don't do everything exactly in the order that they want you to do it, you're like artificially limited. It's like you have to go back and start over. You have to reactivate that first comment, and then you got to do this thing, and then it activates that next thing, and then you do. And so I found myself in a couple of instances where I did something out of order, basically, and I was stuck. I was stuck on an endless loop. And then I finally realized, okay, I need to go back to the beginning and actually start this entire sequence from scratch, because I got to make sure that my Hera, my AI that's helping me and talking to me and telling me what to do, I have to get her to say a certain thing in a certain order to be able to complete that thing. So it was kind of like Wilson's Heart for me from that standpoint where it's a little bit arbitrary. But at the same time, I mean, I can't like hold that against the game, because the game, it puts you into the world. You're so into this world that they can't really give you like tips that are just shining on a light bulb, because that breaks the concept of being in this world. So it's a really hard challenge for a developer to make you feel like you're really in that world, but not have you just be lost forever, trying to figure out how to get to the next point.
Well, I didn't feel that anything was arbitrary. I get your point, and I do agree with what you're saying, but I'll just differentiate it enough that I don't think anything they did was arbitrary. I think that there were some functions that were rooted in some element of space and science and truthness that you needed to do certain tasks in a certain order. Like, for example, put a battery in something before you can power it up and then go on. You kind of have to do the battery first. And I'm just using that as an example. What I think they could have done better, though, is so when you pull that tablet up, it'll list out some objectives, and you swipe your wrist, just like unlocking an iPhone or something, and it pulls that tablet up, and it lists your kind of your core objective, and your core objective may be go back to live, which is the human astronaut on the spaceship. But if you need to do something to accomplish that, they may not spell out what that is. So when you tap the objective, they could spell out more, highlight the things you need to do, and that would be helpful if you missed some of the in-game commentary. So I see no reason Ready at Dawn couldn't have done that. Just put it right in there, and I think that would have helped the issue that you're describing, because you do have to follow the commentary, and if you miss something or don't understand what they mean when they're telling you to do something, then yeah, you kind of have to fumble around. So it's a very, very valid point. But at the same time, and this may be, and purely speculating, but it may be why Ready at Dawn did what they did, is that if they spell it out too much, then it really highlights the overall flaw of Lone Echo, which is it's just an interactivity simulator. At the end of the day, all you're doing is going from point to point and using those really intuitive and really good controls, but that's all you're doing is using those to operate levers and cut access panels off with your torch and scan things with your IO scanner. That's all the game really. Like, if you want to sort of be an ass about it in a way, you could you reduce the game down to that, and that wouldn't be fair, because I think it's a great experience. But I think that may be why they tried to put some unnatural difficulty into it, so that people maybe didn't come to that epiphany.
Did anybody else, did any of you guys get stuck on a certain section of Lone Echo and you tried it over and over again, and then you stopped playing and you started playing and you tried it again over and over again? See, that was my experience. There was 3 different areas where I was just stuck, and so I started playing other games. That's why I haven't finished it yet.
I did have an experience in one section in particular where I was trying to do a few tasks, and I knew what I needed to do. I just couldn't find the thing that I needed to do it. And it's happened, once in particular that stands out. But the worst sections, and I can understand the criticism that you're coming out with here, Anthony, because it's perfectly valid. I understand it. But the thing I want to say about Lone Echo as well is, because if you break it down, as Steve was saying, if you break it down to the actual game mechanics, what am I actually doing? If you take off the Oculus headset and think, what am I actually doing in this game? I'm doing very, very menial tasks. And is that a game? Well, I think the context and the scenario and the atmosphere of this really elevates it beyond just analyzing it on that level. And this is the difference, I think, with talking about a virtual reality game and a standard desktop monitor game. For me, at least, I feel like it's not just about game mechanics. It's about extra levels beyond that can help bring it out if you're just judging it, if you're just analyzing it on that level. But yeah, Lone Echo for me is one of the better titles. I was a little bit lukewarm on it when I first started playing it, but by the time I'd finished it, I was really, really into it. And in fact, because I mentioned this a few weeks ago, it came at a time when I'd just received my Oculus Rift, and I was sort of trying to fine tune my Oculus setup. So I don't know if I got actually the most out of the game, but by the time I finished it, I wanted to go back and play it again. And part of that comes from me being a little bit rubbish at trying to navigate the world in 0G when I first started. By the time I finished, I felt I was a lot more adept at doing that, and I got a lot more out of the game. So yeah, I'm tempted to go through this game again, actually.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I had this issue where I don't know when it saves. I don't know if it says when it saves, but I exited. I had to leave for dinner or something. And then I opened it back up and I was 40 minutes behind where I was before. And then that just made me not want to play it. I'm I don't want to have to redo all this stuff again. So that was one of the gripes I had with it. I don't know if that happened to any of you guys, but
it's a gripe I have with a lot of games. Actually, they don't make it clear when you're hitting a checkpoint, and sometimes you'll think that you've hit a checkpoint and you actually haven't, and you can lose sort of half an hour or something like that. One thing I actually really like about Mage's Tale, I'm pretty sure it's this game that does it, but it makes it very clear when it's saving the game and you know that you've hit a point.
Yeah, because you're waiting 10 minutes for it to come back on.
But that's one thing I do like about that game. But yeah, it's lately I feel like I'm playing a lot of games where I don't know exactly where my last checkpoint was, and then you get this big error message pop up. You're saying you're sure you want to quit because and I don't know when I've last saved it, so I don't get the option. But yeah, it's a
yeah. I had that with Killing Floor Incursion a little bit, like because I did the whole entire tutorial of Killing Floor, you know, and then I was in this level, the farmhouse level, but I didn't know if it was really saving it, and I'm like, oh my god, if I stop here and I got to do that whole tutorial again.
Yeah,
I didn't have that problem, Chris. I think it may be if you spend let's say you need to do objective XYZ and you spend 40 minutes completing or nearly completing that, then it'll take you back to the beginning of the objective. But I don't remember any objectives really taking that long. But I'm more of a, I don't like sandbox games. Like I never got like Grand Theft Auto and a lot of those types of games where you just kind of run around the world and do whatever the hell you want, like loosey-goosey with a narrative. I've never been big on that. And Lone Echo is a game where if you wanted, and if you're that type of player, you could kind of, especially when you leave the spaceship, you could just kind of float around and go explore and check things out and really be nowhere near your objective. And if you do that, and that could kind of set you back from a save file perspective. But me, I just kind of race from objective to objective to objective, and I don't really do anything else. I'm kind of make a beeline for everything. But I think we do want to talk about spoilers a little bit, because some of my best moments from the game I don't think I could say them without the spoilers. So let this be the kind of the warning notice. If you're listening to our Lone Echo segment, go ahead and sign out now unless you want to hear spoilers, and tune in for our show next week. And delay over. So Gary, I think this will be really for you. My best moment in this game was towards the very end. You're floating through the spaceship. You've turned the reactor on, and you have to kind of navigate the very dense area with the little alien sac flesh bubble things, and like just kind of floating in space. And I kept tapping my thrusters, just tap, 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 tap. Like I wasn't holding any, just kind of navigating through. What did you think of that segment?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I can understand some people maybe getting a little bit frustrated with that, though. I did okay with that, because by that point, I felt like I was a little bit more accomplished at moving through this environment. And because at that point as well, with these little alien things, you can't touch anything. So you're going through this environment where you can't touch anything. They're all stuck to the walls everywhere. So you're navigating yourself through very, very small areas using your thrusters, and I enjoyed it. But I've heard some people comment about that, where they felt there was a little bit too much of that towards the end of the game, where you're trying to make your way through these sections, and it sort of spoiled the first part of the game for them. What did you think?
Well, I think going through a big portion of that other ship, I did feel that. But that last segment, though, because it was so different, even though, yeah, it was still populated by the little alien sac things, I think it was done in such a different tone, and the density was so different. Like it felt special to me. It looked good. You had the lights, because whatever that white flash of light that kept running through the area, do you remember that? There's like a white flash of light that would pass through, almost like it was an energy wave or something. At first I thought I couldn't get hit by it. I guess you don't remember.
No, I was trying to think of that part.
Yeah, like just the whole thing, they put it together, and it was some of the best immersion that I've had in VR. I really felt there. another thing that really stands out as being really good, just in terms of a segment, I know you've played that part, Anthony, is when Liv is on the outside of the space station and she gets her foot caught. And I think it's kind of the glimpse that we saw in the trailers. Then you have to free her foot before the big anomaly and the other ship shows up. Like, in that moment, I knew it was a game, and I knew that it didn't, like, my sense of urgency wasn't real. Like, if I just didn't do it fast enough, that the game probably wasn't going to do anything to penalize me. But I still, like, I was caught up in the moment, and I was like, oh, I gotta hurry up, and I gotta hurry up and cut this piece of metal away so I can free her foot up, because it's impending doom and she's going to die if I don't. Like, it was very surreal, because I knew on one hand, and it's a big thing from VR, at least for me, is I know on one hand, I know I'm in my room, and I know none of this is real, and like, it's just a game, it's just computer animations and some programming. But on the other hand, I found myself being kind of caught up in it, and I just thought that was another standout moment of the game. Did I guess not either of you feel similar? No.
Yeah, I mean, I was hurrying, but that one, the one of the parts that stood out to me the most was, there's a part where there's a satellite that has a problem, and it has the alien bubble things all around it, right? And that's when you first, at least for me, that was when I first came in contact with these alien bubble things. I'm actually stuck at a part where at the ship, I haven't gotten inside the ship yet. So I'm stuck at that point. I haven't gotten there yet. But this satellite area where you first see these alien things, the thing that really hit me with this is that, again, what I'm talking about, when you put your hands on stuff, you put your hands on these physical objects, and you're pulling yourself along, and you're using your thrusters, and you're turning on your light, and you're turning on your you're turning on your blowtorch thing, and you're turning on your scanner. All of these little interactions that you're doing, what happens is, yeah, I am in my room, but you know what? I forget about that. There's these brief windows of time where I completely forget. And if I was somehow hoisted up in the air on some type of suspension rig, I would be like lost like you wouldn't believe. But this part with these alien bubble things, there's a part where you take your blowtorch, right? You take your blowtorch and you shoot it at the alien bubbles, and they start pulsating. And the 3D audio, Ready at Dawn, the 3D audio, man, they really killed it with this game. And so the noise that it's making and just everything, like, there was one part where I stuck my hand into the alien bubble thing, and it like, you know, it freaking takes you over and it kills you. I don't know if you guys died from the alien thing, but the very first time that happened, I nearly jumped out of my freaking shoes, because you know what? It's the rumble. Oh my God, the rumble when that thing starts taking over your arms and it shuts you down. And the combination of the rumble and the sound and the fact that you really bought into this world, that's probably the single most terrified I've been in any VR game. And Lone Echo is not known as like this major horror game, but that part scared the living daylights out of me. I was like, if I was ever going to have a heart attack from being shocked in VR, I would have had one right there.
Yep, I died that way a couple times. But speaking of dying, like the whole method of dying, and then, you know, your software being instantly uploaded into a new bot, like, that was all really
absolute genius,
well done.
man.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to mention as well. Yeah, one of the best incorporations of having this method of just starting again at a certain section, that works.
What about when you see your dead body? You go back and you see your dead body in the exact motion, well, your dead robot.
But like when you died in the alien thing, you go back to that spot, and your dead bodies, your dead former robot self, like, your face will be stuck inside the pod where it's, you know, kind of eating your whole body up. I thought it was, and then the radiation, like when you get a new body, like everything's clean and new, and after, because you haven't suffered any radiation damage yet.
Sometimes the whole radiation thing, that was like a game in itself almost. The whole radiation thing. Huh? Did you like scanning for how bad the radiation is, and then refilling your going back to your thing?
when you look down and you think of this is looking awful now, your hands, you think I'm just going to die. Let me just die, and then I'll start again from fresh.
It doesn't impact the game. It doesn't like penalize you in any way. But I felt the same thing. Like just knowing that my stuff was all eaten up and radiated like bothered me. I wanted a clean body. What did you guys think of the laser part? Like I thought that was the worst part of the game for me.
That was okay. I thought
it was the most video gamey part.
Yeah, I thought it broke it up a little bit. Yeah, you're right, Anthony. Actually, yeah, it's the most video game. Chris, actually, where have you got to in Lone Echo? Just so.
I don't know. I think. Yeah. I can relate to the dead body thing. I'm not exactly sure. I'm at least where we did the first radiation part. After that.
Okay, because embarrassingly, I actually died in that tutorial for the radiation thing. So I first saw my dead body in that tutorial, which that was pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm
just gonna say my favorite part of the whole game, like this can be filed, I guess, into the negative category if you want to, because my favorite part of the game is being inside the space station and having Olivia like within so many yards of me and her talking back and forth and just her physically moving around. Everything was just so real, and it was just so cool to interact with this human that was almost halfway believable, like a real AI or something. And I haven't, like, ever since that point, I've been doing all this stuff without her. And it's like, oh man, that was the best part of the game. Is that over? Am I never going to be able to like float around with her in the space station again?
Since this is spoilers, we can say. But yeah, she comes back, and but that's the good thing though as well. I think that is an important part. Olivia is an important part of this game, and I was really pleased when she showed up again. And I think the game was a little bit more. It wasn't quite as good without her in it. The first part of the game where you're being introduced to it was broken up with these little tutorial sections, which I'm not too keen on, if I'm being honest. I weren't too sure about those. And then she goes. So I was thinking, now I know everything. Am I on my own for the rest of the game? But she does come back, and I feel like the last half of the game, especially the very end of the game, is very good with her. She brings something to this game which I don't see too many other games doing, only because I feel like I've said this before. I feel like I'm a periphery character in this game. Even though you're doing your tasks, you know the kind of character you are. Olivia this is a story about Olivia because she's the human character and you follow her. And at the end of the game, for me, that was the biggest impact. It's not a huge, like, going to change your life ending or anything like that. It's a very subtle ending, really. And if I'm being honest, a little bit underwhelming, the very, very final part. But there is a section in that final part of the game which was very, very good. And I think they did a great job of using this human character to complement the kind of character that you're playing in that game.
I think, like, at the end, like, they could have had a bigger firework display gone out in a bang, and you're right, they didn't. But at the same time, the ending didn't feel incomplete. It wasn't like the ending of Lost or something where you're just like, oh, that's it. Like, you know, like I felt like it felt content. Like, okay, I get it. That makes sense. It's done. All in all, I really liked this game. Loved my time with it. It did a lot of things really well that I hope other developers can borrow from. But my biggest concern is we can't have another game like this, really. Like I'm really, like, I would be bothered if games come out that nail some of the mechanics and the interactions but don't really offer much else. Like a Lone Echo 2. I'm not sure I want a Lone Echo 2 unless it really, like, drives up the narrative somehow, like almost like a Mass Effect game, and they added just a little bit of combat, maybe expand the dialogue options, maybe add some upgrades and some other things you can do, make it a little more gamey. But a Lone Echo 2 that's more of the same, I don't think would be a good thing, or wouldn't be something that I would really be clamoring for.
But the team that made this game, like the actual development team that made this, I hope I hope so much that these guys are working on their next thing, because podcast listeners, this is a little PSA. If you really like podcasts, I'll refer to one other podcast, DLC, with Jeff Kanata and Christian Spicer. They had an episode where at the very, very, very end of the episode, there's a bonus interview that Jeff has with the, it might be the head of Ready at Dawn, or maybe the head of this actual team. I don't have the name off the top of my head, but it's a really interesting listen. And what some of the things that they mentioned in that little interview, he mentioned that, like, he was talking about Olivia and some of the stuff that they were doing there. And he said that we left a lot of stuff off the table that we couldn't quite get in. And our like the people that were working on this really want to try some of this stuff in whatever next thing. It really, he didn't come out and say anything, but it really sounds like, it's my opinion that a lot of these developers, when they make something like this, like, it's going to be hard for them to just go back and do a flat game. They are breaking new ground here. This game is probably the farthest we've seen. Like, if you want an interactive movie, this is the closest you're going to get right now at this current point in time. Like, there's nothing closer than this.
If just talking about DLC there, because I listen to that podcast as well, and it's fantastic. If you're a fan of VR, because they dedicate a significant portion of their show, usually, I mean, I say significant, it's significant for a mainstream gaming podcast. Anyway, it's maybe 20 minutes towards the end of the show that they talk about VR stuff. But Jeff Kanata is really interested in VR, and he actually said that this could be his game of the year. At least it could be so far, which I think speaks a lot about how much Lone Echo has to offer for traditional gamers that are coming into VR. One thing I've noticed actually on some forum posts is that people that are just getting their Oculus Rifts now, and they're talking about Lone Echo, they're talking about it almost as in like from a traditional monitor gaming point of view, rather than a VR game, that they're that impressed by it. Sometimes we maybe excuse certain games because they are VR games. It's a new medium, and we know they're doing something different. But I think Lone Echo can stand up on its own in quite a lot of ways as being just a great game overall, really.
Yeah, one of the it's kind of I did this out of order probably, but one of the other things that really stands out for me is going back to that interactivity. When you're in the bigger ship and you don't have the nuclear reactor turned on, so there's a lot of areas without power, you have to cut to access a door's locking mechanism, and then you're able to unlock the door, and then you got to manually slide it open. And you do this, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times, but it got to the point where I could do it. Like, I felt like I was really doing, I could do it so quick, like, and I was going through it like I was doing it in real life. Like, there is
muscle memory.
Yes, it's exactly like that. Like, it wasn't like, it didn't feel like a game. It didn't feel like I was holding motion controllers. It didn't feel like it was another layer. Like, you have gamepad games and on a monitor. And then you have VR games with Vive controllers, Move controllers, whatever, with motion controls. And then you have Lone Echo. Like, does that make sense? Like how I'm saying, like it's like it's a level above. It's doing, you're still using the motion controllers, but they were able to refine it so well. It's like in a class of its own.
That part you talk about, though, opening those doors, I agree completely. It just felt natural. That's it. It tells you, the narrative tells you, you know, you've got to open these doors. Just pull them open. You think, oh, simple as that, and you just do it, and it works. And then, like you say, you do it again and again, and by that time, you know what you're doing, and you just work. And I think part of that actually might be just how intuitive the touch controllers are as well. I think obviously this game has been designed with them in mind, but they work so well in certain parts of this game. And hand position is something that's very, very important in any VR game. And there's some that just don't get it right. Some big games just don't get it right for me, but there are some that get it so right, it's difficult to imagine that you're holding these touch controllers. You really do feel like they are your hands.
One little thing I'll mention as kind of another little, well, it's like I'm dreaming of this future where it's going to be better. And one of the things I talked about, like with Carnage Chronicles, you go around that corner and the wave, you know, the ocean is, and you see the stars and the clouds and everything. But if you look at the stars, it's a wallpaper. And one of the things that kind of irritated me a little bit about this game is like when you're just floating out in space, like if you look around at space, like it doesn't really look like space. And I wonder, are we going to get to a point where when you look off into the distance, instead of looking like 50 feet over there, there's a wallpaper that is just covered? Like, is it ever going to get where like you don't, like it just goes and you're seeing little tiny specks that are just floating along at every possible interval?
I wonder if that's a difference in settings. And I, you know, I have the 1080 Ti. I'm fortunate in that sense. I did not feel that way at all. In fact, like the rings of Saturn, and it had all the debris in it. Like I thought looking off it looked real. It looked like it did not look like a wallpaper. And I know what you're talking about. Were you talking specifically Carnage Chronicles, or were you using that as an example?
Well,
the same as Lone Echo.
Carnage Chronicles is bad as, I mean, what I mentioned with Carnage Chronicles is that you look at the stars, it's great and everything, but if you look at it for longer, you realize, yeah, it's just a wallpaper. It's kind of like Vanishing Realms, like the sky is just a wallpaper.
I agree with you, and I don't know the solution to this, whether it's high resolution or what it is, because something that I've noticed, and this is a space game as well, you know, Elite Dangerous. This is a problem that Elite suffers from, and it's an annoying problem because that game really needs that to feel like you are in space. And if you ignore it, you can sort of get past it. But if you look into the distance and you see this, you can see it's a skybox. You can see it's nothing. It's not real.
See, for me, it bothered me more because there were certain parts in this game where, again, you know, the hand, like you're grabbing things and you grab on something and you push off and you're floating away like this and you see your shadow floating away. And it's like, I am here. This is real. This is so real. I'm floating away. My shadow is perfectly following my float. But then I look over here to this background of space and I see wallpaper, and then it's like, damn, when are you guys going to fix that?
I think it's, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I think it may be a setting thing because I don't remember. I know what you're talking about. I felt it in so many games. Theseus is another good example of it. That whole sky is wallpaper city. But in Lone Echo, I don't remember that. Like it felt really rendered, especially looking towards Saturn and the rings.
Well, the rings look good. The rings do look good, but I'm saying if you just look at a blank space, yeah,
it's the start. For me, for me, Saturn looked great and the rings look great, and then it's the stars. You know, it doesn't look like distant space, infinite space. It looks like it's a skybox. That's what it looks like. And I don't know a good way that they can get around this. Maybe it is resolution, as simple as that.
I think it's just years away. It's going to be resolution. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to create these layers of focus where you continue to see things at different stages, and then it just tricks your brain into thinking it's going on for infinity.
The problem is as well, anything that's sort of far distance, you don't get the stereoscopic effect from that. So it's difficult for VR developers to give a sense of depth beyond a certain level of depth, because everything beyond that just looks flat. And it's the same as in real life, but it just we have something extra in real life that prevents us from feeling that, I guess.
And every negative thing I say about this game, I just want it to be known. Look, this is a top 5 VR game. It's not even a question. I mean, this could be number 1. I put it up there with Robo Recall, Arizona, like the best VR games ever. This is like, I'm just nitpicking little nitpicks.
Yep. It's all good for discussion. The issue you're describing, I'm really concerned. I don't know. I shouldn't say I'm really concerned because I don't really know, but Fallout and Skyrim, more so Skyrim, because I've read developers say that very issue, that when you're in the world of Skyrim and you're playing on a monitor, one of the way they were able to make the game feel as big as it is and render what they render is because, like, you know, the mountain or whatever you're looking off way out in the distance is just a flat wallpaper, and it's not an issue on a monitor really because it's on a flat device. In VR, like one of the problems of you know, playing Skyrim in VR and porting these games even to PC, which I don't know if we don't have confirmation that Skyrim's coming to PC, but everyone pretty much believes it is even porting it to PC, it has that issue of, even though you got more power, how are they gonna go through and create, like spend a bunch of time creating rendered assets, or can they? And I think that's one of the biggest things of bringing Skyrim and Fallout in, and any other game that's outdoors and open world, that wasn't done with VR in mind. I think that's a major hurdle, and that's something to keep your eye on when those games do come out, because we're not that far off from Fallout now, 7 weeks or so, something like that, right? It's mid-October.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
The sky problem in VR, it's like a 5-10 year away deal. Like we're gonna have to just deal with these wallpapers, and it's just the way it is. But imagine the first time you look up at the sky and it really truly looks like the sky, and you truly can say, damn, this looks real. Like this looks straight up real. That is going to be so magical. Oh my God, that is going to be incredible.
Cool. Is that it? I guess that's it, huh?
Yep, I think we can call it.
All right. I definitely have to finish Lone Echo. Honestly, I don't feel like there was that many spoilers. Like I feel like I still get enjoyment out of it. Like even if people hear spoilers, because it's experiencing it for yourself. That's like what's cool about VR. So, yeah. With that being said, thank you guys for watching episode 48 of the VR Roundtable. Be sure to leave a review on iTunes. If you watch on iTunes, that helps us out a lot. And you can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are located. So, yeah, we'll see you all next week.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.
It's bye.
Later, guys.